Hey everyone, it's Ray Cole here from Legends Audio. Welcome back to the channel where we dive deep into the golden age of hi-fi, the good, the bad, and the brutally honest. And it seems like lately there's been kind of a barrage of negativity around vintage electronics, vintage stereos, YouTube videos, Facebook forums, you name it. I'm kind of seeing it a lot lately, and it might seem like I'm adding fuel to that fire. You'd probably be right if while doing the research for this video, I didn't find a few places that are specializing in some of these. So it's not all death and taxes. I do have some good news for a couple of these. I'll be sharing those throughout the video and we'll have links in the description. Today we're counting them down from 10 to 1. Each one is a story of why it looked like a dream purchase and why after getting burned in the shop and in my own system, I just can't recommend chasing them anymore. Let's get into it. Pioneer SX series. Let's walk into a stereo store back in the late 1970s. Those big silver-faced Pioneers were everywhere for a reason. The massive power meters that danced like crazy as soon as the music hit, the clean, powerful sound that could fill a room, and that serious, professional look made them one of the most sought-after receivers of the era. The SX-1050 delivered 120 watts per channel into 8 ohms from 20 to 20,000 hertzes with total harmonic distortion around 0.1%. The SX-1080 pushed even harder with up to 150 watts per channel and strong dynamic headroom. These receivers featured sensitive tuners, high-quality phono stages that handled cartridges beautifully, plenty of flexible inputs and outputs, and a smart speaker protection system that, ironically, became one of the biggest headaches later on. They had rock-solid construction, large heat sinks, and that front panel packed with buttons and gorgeous analog meters that vintage enthusiasts still go crazy for today. What really made this series shine was the sound. Strong, clean, and full of energy, with tight bass, clear mids, and smooth treble. A lot of longtime users still praise how well they drive large speakers without straining, making them perfect for rock, pop, and live music from the 70s and 80s. They became true workhorses in countless American and European homes. Reliable, easy to use, and looking extremely pro on the shelf. But those same strengths in power and features are exactly what make them tough to repair today. Many of these units are plagued with protection relay issues. The relay loves to click on and off constantly or fail completely, turning what should be a simple fix into a long and expensive troubleshooting chase. When that relay goes bad, it often triggers a chain reaction affecting the power supply, driver stage, and other components. Repairs get lengthy and costly because you end up checking and replacing a lot of related parts. I've had plenty of customers bring them into Legends Audio thinking it would be a quick job, only to see the final bill climb as we replaced relays, tested power transistors, and dealt with boards that had been running hot for years. After getting burned a few times on this line, I decided to stop buying, selling, or even taking them in for resale. It's just too risky. If you already own a clean SX-1050 or SX-1080 that's been well maintained, especially with fresh capacitors and a properly checked relay, take it to a tech who really knows Pioneers. These can still sound fantastic for years to come, but if you're out hunting for another one on the secondhand market, I'm sorry, I'm passing, I've learned my lesson. That's number 10. Let's keep going with some even heavier hitters higher up on the list. If you're into vintage audio, don't forget to subscribe. Later Fisher RS series, Fisher carried that classic American brand prestige that made people feel like they were getting something special. With big power output, warm and inviting sound, and a design that fit perfectly in living rooms across the country, these receivers became staples in many homes during their heyday. Even today, plenty of longtime enthusiasts still talk about them with real fondness, remembering how they brought music to life in a smooth, musical way. The later RS models, particularly from the mid to late 70s into the early 80s, pushed impressive numbers. Some, like the RS-1080 or RS-2010 series, delivered around 100 to 170 watts per channel depending on the exact version. With strong dynamic power reserves that handled demanding speakers well, they featured decent tuners, solid phono inputs, and that rich, full-bodied sound signature Fisher was known for, often described as forgiving and easy on the ears for long listening sessions. The build had a certain heft to it, with attractive front panels and meters that gave off a premium feel for the price point. A lot of folks bought them thinking they had found their forever receiver, and for a while they delivered exactly that kind of satisfaction. Unfortunately, those later models leaned heavily into STK hybrid amplifier modules that tend to fail in dramatic fashion after decades of use. When one goes, it frequently takes surrounding transistors, resistors, and board traces with it, especially in units that ran hot over the years. The flood of cheap replacement modules on the market only adds to the gamble, since many don't last or perform like the originals. Heat buildup, aging capacitors, and the overall complexity of these designs have led to long-term reliability issues that just weren't as common in earlier Fisher gear. We saw too many returns and repeat service calls on these. Customers would bring one in excited about the warm sound, only to face the same expensive problems down the road. It taught me to avoid stocking or recommending them for resale. They sounded fantastic when new and can still impress in rare, perfectly maintained examples, but the risk is simply too high for most people today. If you already own one that's running strong, get it fully recapped and serviced by someone experienced with STK-equipped gear. Keep an eye on temperatures and don't push it too hard. But if you're thinking about picking one up on the used market, I'd suggest looking elsewhere. I've been down that road enough times. Certain Akai receivers, 70S, 80S era, Akai brought a distinctive, flashy style and respectable performance that helped them sell a ton of units back in the day. Their receivers from the 70s and 80s had real personality, often paired with their well-regarded reel-to-reel tape decks to create complete systems that stood out in the showroom. Many buyers appreciated the bold design, useful features, and solid everyday sound that made them a popular choice for music lovers on a reasonable budget. Specific models like the AA1050 or AA1120 series offered 50 to 100 plus watts per channel with low distortion figures, sensitive FM tuners that pulled in stations clearly, and versatile switching options for multiple sources. The phono stages handled turntables nicely, and the overall engineering gave a lively, engaging presentation that worked well for a wide range of music. They weren't the absolute top tier in terms of refinement, but they delivered character and fun that a lot of people connected with. The build quality felt substantial for the era, and many units are still out there looking sharp with their distinctive looks and glowing meters. The challenge comes when things stop working. Sourcing parts for some of Akai's more unique circuits and proprietary components has become incredibly difficult as time goes on. Normal age-related issues like failing capacitors, noisy controls, and power supply problems are common, but the specialized parts make repairs complicated and expensive. Many of these receivers eventually end up stripped for parts because finding a technician willing to tackle them or the right components at a fair price is tough. Online forums are packed with similar stories of frustration from owners who started with high hopes only to hit roadblocks. I stopped chasing these for the shop at Legends Audio years ago. While a pristine, well-maintained example can still deliver enjoyable performance, the odds of landing one that stays reliable without major investment are low. They had real character and brought joy to many systems in their prime, but today they're better left to dedicated collectors who already understand the quirks and have access to parts. If you come across one that's been babied and recently serviced, it might be worth a listen. Otherwise, I'd keep looking for something with a more straightforward repair path. Technics receivers with STK modules. Ray Cole from Legends Audio. Technics built a strong reputation for reliability and excellent sound, especially with their legendary turntables, but their receivers also delivered a clean, powerful presentation that many people loved. These units had a no-nonsense Japanese engineering feel with precise controls, solid construction, and a neutral yet engaging sound that worked well across different music genres. Many models from the late 70s through the 80s, such as certain SA series receivers, offered 50 to 100 plus watts per channel with low distortion and good damping factors for tight speaker control. They featured accurate tuners, quality phono preamps, and thoughtful features like direct coupling in some designs that helped with clarity and bass response. The build quality was typically high with hefty transformers and well laid out internals that gave owners confidence when they first brought them home. A lot of audiophiles appreciated their straightforward musical performance that didn't color the sound too much while still providing plenty of punch when needed. The downside shows up with age. A large number of these receivers rely on STK hybrid amplifier modules or densely packed boards that run quite hot during extended use. When those STK packs fail, and they often do after decades of thermal stress, the repair usually requires major disassembly, careful testing of surrounding components, and a fair amount of labor. Failures can cascade, damaging power supplies or driver circuits and turning a simple module swap into an expensive project. I've owned a couple myself that sounded absolutely beautiful right up until the problems appeared, While there are a few specialists who handle Technics gear, well, for the average buyer or casual enthusiast, it's simply too risky. Parts availability varies wildly, and finding someone local who knows these circuits can be challenging. At Legends Audio, we've seen enough of these come and go to know the pattern. They can be fantastic when everything is working, but the long-term ownership experience often involves more hassle than many people expect. If you already have one that's running strong, I recommend a full recap, fresh thermal compound on the modules, and keeping good ventilation around the unit. But if you're shopping for one now, I'd think twice unless it's been recently serviced by a trusted tech. I've learned it's better to look for alternatives with simpler, more serviceable designs. Marantz B series in certain transitional models, Ray Cole here with Legends Audio. The Marantz name alone carried serious weight and made you feel like a real audiophile the moment you powered one up. Those beautiful faces, the lush and rich sound signature, and that pure golden age vibe still draw people in today. Early Marantz gear is legendary, but some of the B series and transitional solid-state models from the late 70s and early 80s tell a different story. Models like certain 22XXB or similar transitional receivers offered 50 to 80 watts per channel with Marantz's characteristic warm, detailed sound, and excellent build quality for the era. They featured elegant styling, clear meters, and a musicality that made vocals and instruments come alive in a very pleasing way. Many owners love the depth and smoothness these units provided, especially with classic rock, jazz, and acoustic music. The transformers were robust, the chassis felt substantial, and they looked stunning in any setup. However, some of these B series and transitional models have known issues with components that have become quite scarce. Certain driver transistors, custom ICs, and specific power supply parts are hard to source, requiring deep expertise and sometimes creative solutions to repair properly. What starts as a straightforward fix can quickly become a time-consuming and costly project, especially if multiple sections are affected. It's not impossible to restore them, but the headache and expense often outweigh the end result, particularly if you're thinking about resale value or reliable daily use. I learned my lesson on these particular ones after a few experiences at the shop. Early Marantz pieces can still be absolute gems with proper care, but these later transitional models carry more risk than reward for most buyers. If you already own one that's working well, keep up with regular maintenance and consider a thorough service soon. But if you're out hunting on the used market, I suggest being very selective and getting it checked out thoroughly before buying. There are better options out there for similar money with fewer long-term surprises. Yamaha CR-X40 series, CR440, 640, 840, 1040, Ray Cole from Legends Audio. 8 years ago, these Yamaha CR-X40 series receivers were showing up everywhere, often still working without any service. People loved the sound and the value they represented at the time. Yamaha had a strong reputation, and this lineup seemed like a smart way to get that quality without paying top dollar. The series included models like the CR440, CR640, CR840, and CR1040, delivering roughly 40 to 100 watts per channel depending on the specific unit. They maintained much of Yamaha's natural, detailed sound signature, even while using SDK output modules to hit more competitive pricing against brands like Pioneer and Kenwood. Features included solid tuners, good phono stages, and clean styling that looked modern for the late 70s. Many buyers at the time felt they were getting a lot of performance for the money, but over time, the weaknesses became clear. Those STK packs, combined with large boards that didn't handle heat well, led to frequent failures that often cascaded through other components. The thinner faceplates and lack of glass over the tuning dial also let more dust in and made them feel less premium. We started seeing more problems a couple years after selling them, with customers returning units or needing repeat repairs. Eventually, we stopped carrying the line in the shop because the risk of future issues was too high. They still sound great when everything is right, and the reliability drop in that single generation was noticeable compared to earlier or competing models. If you have one that's currently working, I strongly recommend a thorough service including new capacitors, proper heatsink work on the SDK modules, and good ventilation. But as a shop owner who's been through it, I wouldn't chase another one. The potential repair costs and hassle just aren't worth it for most people anymore. Carver equipment. Ray Cole from Legends Audio. Carver was absolutely huge in the 80s and 90s, and Bob Carver remains a true legend in the audio world. The man was a genius innovator who brought us magnetic field amplifiers that delivered massive power from surprisingly compact chassis, along with his signature sonic holography that created an incredibly wide and immersive soundstage. Their designs had that cool utilitarian industrial look, not flashy, but serious and purposeful, like serious studio gear that ended up in home systems. I've always loved the sound of every Carver piece I've owned. There's a dynamic, effortless quality to them that just pulls you into the music, whether it's a powerful amplifier or one of their clever preamps. The challenge is that these unique circuits don't follow standard troubleshooting rules. Schematics can be tough to track down, and many technicians simply don't want to dive into the proprietary designs. That's where things get tricky for the average owner. The good news is I've found a couple of solid specialists here in the US who really focus on Carver restoration and know these units inside out. If you already own one, I recommend sending it to the experts. It might cost more upfront, but it can save you a ton of headaches and money in the long run. Even so, when buying used these days, I'm very selective. The innovation that made them special also makes them riskier in the current vintage market. They're fantastic when everything is right, but I've learned to approach them with caution unless the unit has a clear service history. Sansui Z, Ray Cole here with Legends Audio. Picture this. It's the early 80s and a slick salesman in a mall stereo store leans in and says, "You haven't truly heard AC/DC's Back in Black until you've cranked it through the Sansui 9900Z. This receiver had it all. Quartz lock digital tuning with presets, so you could jump straight to your favorite station, a flashy spectrum analyzer that danced with the music, modern digital power meters, and that bold, aggressive look that screamed high performance." Sansui has always been one of my all-time favorite brands, known for building gear that combined great sound with real character. But when they jumped headfirst into new digital technology and loaded up on proprietary ICs, things got complicated fast. The 9900Z and similar early 80s models became repair nightmares because of their overly complex circuitry. Parts are nearly impossible to find reliably, and even when you do locate them, the labor involved in diagnosing and fixing these densely packed boards is no joke. I've been burned personally and seen it happen way too many times through the shop. Customers bring them in excited about the features and looks, only to face the same recurring issues. If you've got one that has run flawlessly since the day it was new, that's awesome, and I'm genuinely happy for you. But as someone running Legends Audio, I can't keep losing money on models with these kinds of problems. They looked and sounded like pure business on paper, but in today's world, they're just too unpredictable for me to recommend. German console stereos, Grundig, Telefunken flagships. These massive German consoles were the undisputed focal point of living rooms from the 1950s through the 1970s. We're talking breathtaking cabinetry, finished with layers of lacquer so thick it looked like an ice skating rink, loaded with premium features like dual turntables, multi-band shortwave radios, powerful built-in amplifiers, and even early wireless speaker options in the top models. Grundig and Telefunken took German engineering to the extreme, building these as true furniture pieces that doubled as high-end entertainment centers. Many flagship models pushed 20 to 40 watts per channel or more with warm, room-filling tube or early solid-state sound that felt luxurious for the era. They often sold for the equivalent of several $1,000s in today's money when new, reflecting their premium quality and craftsmanship. Finding anyone capable of working on them today is brutal. Rare parts, service manuals printed in German, and incredibly complex internal builds make repairs a specialist game. Then there's the cabinet itself. That gorgeous, thick lacquer develops fine cracks after decades of temperature and humidity swings, and proper refinishing is strictly pro-level work that adds serious cost. The biggest red flag when buying any vintage electronics still applies here if the seller says, "It worked perfectly. When I put it away, it just needs a needle." Either buy it dirt cheap or walk away completely. I've seen too many hopeful buyers get burned on these beauties. They're stunning when restored, but the time, money, and expertise required often outweigh the enjoyment for most people. Onkyo M504 and Integra series, this is the one I truly wish wasn't on this list. From the very first picture I saw, I was hooked. Those stunning analog meters are still some of the best ever put on an amplifier. 7 or 8 years ago, the vintage gods smiled on me and I finally landed one. I even bought it non-working, fully aware the left channel was out because I believed it was worth the risk. I took it straight to one of the best techs in the area and waited for the good news. Instead, I got the bad news. The special glue Onkyo used on these Integra series amps turns conductive over time and starts eating away at components and traces. Removing it all is incredibly labor-intensive and expensive. Even worse, the custom IC that controls the meter movement is basically unobtainable today. This isn't some isolated story. Forums are packed with identical experiences of owners watching their dream amps become expensive paperweights or parts donors. When new in the mid-1980s, these units carried MSRPs around $900 and delivered roughly 160 watts per channel of clean, dynamic power with build quality that felt bulletproof at the time. I ended up parting mine out and kept only the meters as a reminder. If you're lucky enough to have a working M504, get it fully serviced with fresh capacitors right away and avoid pushing it hard. These were fantastic sounding amplifiers in their prime, but this era of Onkyo is slowly becoming a chapter in vintage audio history rather than a practical option. I still admire them from a distance. If you have a working 504, get it fully serviced and recap those caps before something catastrophic happens. This era of Onkyo is becoming part of vintage history, unfortunately. There you have it, my top 10 vintage stereos I'll never buy again. These were all incredible in their time, and I still have huge respect for the engineering. But today, with parts availability and repair costs, some just aren't worth the risk for most people. If you enjoyed this deep dive, smash that like button, subscribe, and hit the bell. We've got more vintage truth coming soon. Thanks for watching. I'm Ray Cole from Legends Audio. Stay legendary. See you in the next one.